Good evening, and welcome to Darwin Speaks post-weekend show for college football. We'll go over some scores and some winners and losers. So, getting right to things, first game I want to talk about, Arkansas, Georgia. Arkansas won that game 31-24. Arkansas was very impressive in that game going on the road to Georgia to knock off Georgia. They got Alabama next week. That should be a tell of the tape. Anyway, when you join my line show later on in the week, we'll discuss the line on that game and my opinion on that game. Next game, West Virginia, Maryland. West Virginia wins that game 31-17. Kansas State over Iowa State 27-20. An impressive win for Temple over Connecticut 30-16. I really thought Connecticut could walk away with that game. Well, not walk away, but win by the line, which was 7. I thought they could cover that. But then again, I was telling people to stay away from that bet because Temple is actually better than what's advertised because it's one of them teams you just don't hear that much about. But statistically, they're a very good team. Next game, Ohio State, Ohio. Ohio State wins that game 43-7. Impressive and showing by Pryor. Next game, Penn State over Kent State 24-0. Georgia Tech knocks off North Carolina 30-24. Vandy knocked off Ole Miss 28-14. I thought that would be a come-out game for Jeremiah Masoli, but I guess Vanderbilt had a different opinion on that. Very impressive win for Vanderbilt, considering they've been playing awful football the last couple of weeks. But I guess that just goes to show that Ole Miss is overrated. I guess that's the proper word for it. Next game, Virginia Tech over East Carolina, 49-27. The line on that game was 20, and I was suspicious of that, considering the poor play that Virginia Tech has been having as of late. I was weary of that because evidently the experts knew something was up with that, giving them 20 points, even though they were playing a team, East Carolina, which I'm sure, considering the way Virginia Tech played last week, I would have really thought East Carolina would have made a better game of that. Missouri 27-24 over San Diego State. I think Missouri is overrated. I like them, but I think they're overrated. Next game, Oklahoma State Tulsa, which was a blowout, 65-28 for Oklahoma State. I just don't get Oklahoma State. They played Troy Troy played them to within 3 points. And they come back the next week against a team that has a very explosive offense. It just blows them completely out the water. I just really don't get that team. Uh, as far as I'm concerned, they're one of them teams that when it comes to the lines on specific games, especially games that they're involved in, I would probably stay away from that. Stay away from Oklahoma State because week after week, you just don't know what team's going to show up. Next game, Alabama, Duke, 62-13. I thought Duke would make a better run at it. I actually went against the line on that, which was 27 points for Alabama, knowing how good Alabama is, but they just went to extra length and just show me they're much better than I gave them credit for. And Duke's offensive attack and passing attack is overrated. Next game, Florida State wins over BYU 34-10. I figured Florida State, once they got back home, they would put up a much better game. And BYU is probably a little bit overrated this year. But I'm still not sold on Florida State. The first weekend out, they had a very impressive offensive showing. But since then, I'm very weary about them and their total team chemistry. Next game I want to talk about is Florida and Tennessee. Florida wins that 31-17. Impressive win for them. I thought they would have a harder time um, at Tennessee. And I actually went against the line on that game, which was 15 points. So Tennessee did come through on that. But like I said, I thought they would have a tougher time down in Tennessee. Next game, USC Minnesota. USC wins that game 32-21. Um, Lane Kiffin is definitely driving USC in reverse. I just don't see USC. I mean, I understand that they're going through a bunch of off the field issues with sanctions and all of that from the NCAA, but I just don't see USC as being a team that even will recover from that anytime soon. Next game I want to talk about, Wisconsin, Arizona State. Wisconsin wins that game by a point. Blocked field goal in the closing minutes of that game secured them the win. I really thought that game was going in overtime. The spread on that game, or the line on that game, was 14 points to Wisconsin, and I, of course, went against that. I just really thought Arizona had a chance at beating them in that game, and they proved that they came within 1 point of at least sending it to overtime. Um, Nebraska, Washington. Nebraska wins that game 56-21. Washington is just pathetic. I guess that's all I can really say. And everyone, of course, knows my hate for Nebraska, but very impressive win by them. Jake Locker is definitely overrated. He's going to be one of those. I mean, I'm sure some team will take a gamble on him, but as far as I'm concerned, he'll end up like Jamarcus Russell and Ryan Lee and be a bust in the NFL. I really just don't see that guy as being this type of go-to type of quarterback to run a team. I understand the talent around him is somewhat pathetic, and maybe, just maybe, I'm reading too much into that. And with a better crew, he could be a better quarterback. But for the next level, I just really don't know. Because, of course, if he was surrounded with some talent in Washington, I do believe that he could be a decent quarterback on the college level. But going to the next level, I really don't see him being all that effective as a quarterback, unless he's on a team that just has every piece in place and they just need someone pretty much to carry the load. Next game I want to talk about is Oklahoma Air Force. Oklahoma wins that game by 3. The line on that game was 23 for Oklahoma. I knew Air Force would give them a battle, even in Norman, simply because things I've said earlier about Oklahoma, very undisciplined when it comes to defense. And playing a team like Air Force, you definitely have to be a disciplined team. Next game I want to talk about is TCU and Baylor. TCU wins that game 45-10. I'm very impressed with that. I knew TCU was a very good team, but I thought Baylor offensively, they could put up a little bit more points than what they put up. But that just goes to show TCU is all that, and they're for real. So keep your eye on them. The next game I want to get into is Clemson-Auburn. Auburn wins that game 27-24. I got to say I was very impressed with Clemson, the way they played that game. They looked very, very good, and they definitely had a chance to win that game. Auburn is, I think, a bit overrated this year, but that goes without saying for the whole SEC. I think the SEC this year, only teams that will be somewhat impressive are Alabama, maybe Arkansas, and South Carolina. Other than that, I just don't see the SEC being as dominant as they've been in years past. But I also got to throw LSU into the mix because LSU, slowly but surely, is starting to show some talent from years past. They're emerging as being a decent team at best this year. They knocked off Mississippi State 29-7. Impressive win for them. I thought that game would be a lot closer than that. But yeah, I think slowly but surely they're turning that corner to being a much better team than how they looked in the first couple of weeks. Next game, Michigan State knocks off Notre Dame 34-31 in overtime, which was a very gutsy call by Michigan State. Would I call that? Maybe. Go for the win. I have no problem with that. Or you can secure a tie. A lot of people go that way, and then, but that can go back and forth all night. You know how that goes. So it was a really gutsy call. They caught Notre Dame surely off guard. Caught me off guard. I was watching the game, and I didn't think they would do anything like that or go for a touchdown in that situation, but came through, looked very good. My lock from last week was Idaho over UNLV. The line on that was 7. Idaho won 30-7. I like that game from the beginning. From all the games I looked at, as far as the line goes, when I seen that game, I was very impressed with that, and knew that Idaho would come through on that. Iowa, Arizona. I thought Iowa would win that game down in Tucson, but Arizona had a very impressive showing. They got on top of Iowa right from the beginning. Didn't give them room to breathe. Very impressive win for Arizona over a very good Iowa team. Game I was somewhat, well, really surprised about. UCLA 31-13 over Houston. Didn't see that coming at all. As far as I was concerned, UCLA was just simply pathetic. And Houston was a team that normally puts up a lot of points and offensively played very, very well. So I was really shocked by that score. Another shocker, as far as the points anyway, Stanford over Wake Forest 68-24. Stanford is for real. Look for them and Oregon to be the head dogs in the Pac-10. There are no other games that actually played on Saturday of interest. So that will conclude the show for the 19th of September, third week of college football post show. You can join my line show for the fourth week. Later on in the week, we'll discuss the lines on each game, or the lines presented by the bookkeepers. And you can get my opinion on that and go from there. Anyway, I thank you all for joining me. Hope to see you next time, and I'll see you later on in the week. Again, thank you very much.